Good afternoon, everybody. It's Christopher Saul over at Mid-Bay News. This is Paul and Saul, but again, there's no Paul over there. So we are working on a special Elections Day show that we're going to put to you right now while Paul is out of town. But wanted to get you the last couple of interviews that we weren't able to get to on election night, and that's all thanks to our sponsor right down here, Eglin Federal Credit Union. They do some great work. I got my home loan through Eglin Federal Credit Union. It is a great rate, and every time I call them, a real person picks up. That's kind of cool. So if you need somebody for a home loan to make that happen for you, Eglin Federal Credit Union, EglinFCU.com is where you can find them. They also have credit cards. They have, I think, other sorts of loans as well, personal loans, things like that. So check them out. They're a great, great sponsor here at Mid-Bay News. They keep the sports and the politics and the government and all the other stuff going here. So we're really thankful for them. But we're also thankful for you, and that's why we're going to start this show. So the first of our two big interviews for today comes from newly, not technically elected, because he still has to go against some write-in candidates in November, but wink, wink. Jim Bagby is going to be a very strong candidate for commissioner, but he talked to us a little bit about the election win that he earned this past week against two candidates, including an incumbent, despite having not the most money in the race and having some pretty stiff competition that started almost a year before. So here's some of the highlights from our more than, I think it was a 35 minute interview. So this is about 5 or 6 minutes of it. I think I got the good stuff. Let me know what you think.
Just totally insane on how we don't think through problems and solve them. We just throw resources at them, and we keep throwing money because we have it. Uh, and we need to figure out how we're going to fix it. We're going to actually have a strategic plan that we execute. We're going to have a strategic plan that drives our budgeting process.
And you
Yep.
probably know that the most dangerous position to be in Al Qaeda is probably the number three guy.
Yeah.
Uh, they tend to get drone strikes, and that's a
Yes.
lot like being the county administrator in Walton County.
Yeah.
And they're probably about just as hostile to the county administrator as they are to the Al Qaeda number three. But I am curious on that because I mean we've had 11 or 12 county administrators in the last
Yeah.
decade and a half.
Changing the culture of the commission. This is probably my top issue. And when I say that, people just sometimes their eyes glaze over, and sometimes they look at me like, "What the heck are you talking about?" Ever since I started working in this county in 2003, my perception has been of the county commissioners that their title was county commissioner, but they acted like district commissioners, like the old road commissioners that you hear people refer to. And it's, well, in my district. Oh, well, in my district, we did that. Well, I didn't get involved in that problem because that wasn't in my district. It's our county, the whole county. It's not my district or Dan Curry's district or Tony Anderson's district. It's our county. And the first thing we have to do is we have to change the way we think about our jobs to understand that we are county
We deal with this in
commissioners.
the interim? How do we not
And
have a headline on Good Morning America once every 3 weeks? It's like, hey, this guy's being a jerk at the beach, and then consequently running down tourism revenues in the county. How do we fix that?
okay, so that was the fourth most asked question on the campaign trail.
I'm getting them
And
all.
you hit them all. Yeah. Uh, and my solution is pretty simple. I've got short term, a near term, and a long term plan. Short term is there exists a transit zone 20 feet from the wet sand that people can walk, people can sit, people can fish, people can swim. I would encourage the sheriff to say the exact same thing. And then we have to communicate that to our residents, our citizens, and our guests. And so we'll work on that. When we update the beach activities ordinance, which we update every year, we ought to say for safety reasons, no signs, no poles, no ropes, no obstructions, no, whatever within 50 feet of the wet sand. because then that allows for the 20-foot transit zone, and that allows another 30 feet for emergency vehicles to traverse if they have to get through or whatever. So nothing that would stop that. And that kind of separates the two groups. And you tell them, and that includes security guards running down to try to chase people off the transit zone. You can't do that. And if we need to, all it takes is the arrest and prosecution of one security guard who's down there harassing people in the transit zone for that to stop. No doubt in my mind. So once we get the two groups separated, and in that transit zone, there's no digging holes, there's no tents, there's no, setting up for the party type thing or whatever. No, that is a transit zone. You can temporarily sit down and that's fine. That's the short term. I'm sorry, short term. The near term is do a state beach nourishment project.
Got it. County Attorney Clay Atkinson was confirmed earlier this year. Voted majority brought him in. He's also the county or city attorneys for Freeport and Paxton and Defuniak Springs. Is that a problem?
The fact that he's the county attorney for me is not a problem. The fact that he is also the attorney for Paxton, Freeport, Defuniak Springs, the TDC, probably a couple other cats and dogs in there somewhere, that is to me just a conflict of interest waiting to happen. And I will encourage him to, either take one of his people and make them the county attorney and they're there forever. We don't need a legal firm necessarily representing the county. We need a county attorney. I'm fine if it's somebody that we hire, that's not an employee. But Clay's great. He's very smart. He's fully capable. But to me, it's begging for some situation, particularly if this property tax amendment passes and we start getting into the providing county services within city limits because the city doesn't have enough property tax revenue and sales tax revenue and other revenue to pay for those necessary services. I would just prefer he not be trying to negotiate, or his firm not be trying to negotiate for both sides.
All right, so Gordon Porter is joining us today after a very, very close election win. It was the only rematch that we saw between the same two candidates from 4 years ago. That's when Bill Evans narrowly got a win, kind of in the same fashion. Very, very close percentage win. This time, though, Gordon Porter emerged victorious. What changed?
Honestly, I think our strategy changed a little bit. So over the last 4 years, I've been able to get into some positions where I've been able to serve the community on a sort of a volunteer basis, I should say, with the Republican Party here at home with the REC, the Republican Executive Committee, as well as, helping with Club America and getting some chapters started. So just being a little bit more forward facing with some of that and actually helping people and kind of letting people know that for real, I'm authentic, what I stand for. I stand by what I mean and what I say. And so, giving somebody or giving the public, I guess, a chance to, see what I stand for in action, I think that might have made the difference for us.
What do you think is going to change in the next 4 years? I mean, if Gordon Porter has his way, right, within the realm of reality, what changes in this school district?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing would be a little bit more transparency from the standpoint of, one of my initiatives I'd like to focus on is, building our live stream capabilities and actually being able to give a way for the public to see what's going on and not just have the meetings, in a boardroom setting where you have to have, a physical attendance to know what's going on. That would be one of my top priorities getting started, in November.
Looking into, I guess, the next 2 or 3 years, you're going to be on a board with a bunch of other people that are in an A school district. It's been an A school district for, I think, about 11 years now. I think the last time it was B was 2014, 2015, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, what, how does that continue? How do we improve? Because, what's the difference between an A with a certain percentage and a much higher percentage? And what do you want to see in terms of results for students and outcomes for students?
Yeah, you raise a good point. I think our school district is doing very well from a standpoint of administration, and we have I said it last night. We have a well-oiled machine here at Walton County, and so I think we have a golden opportunity to build on that. So again, with things like transparency, but also building some initiatives for our kids to play a part in, in the local community. So pushing certain clubs and committees and things like that, and helping to build some visibility to some of those things. So the Kiwanis Key Club, which is a Kiwanis organization. I mentioned Club America a few minutes ago. So I think not so much focusing on graduation rates as much, while that's important, and that's, what's helped Walton County School District be so effective. I think because we have achieved that, we are able to shift our focus a little bit and build on that system. And so that's really what I'd like to see in the next 4 years is, to turn the guns more to shoring up what we have here in our community, our values, our principles. I don't think I'm alone in that. I think our school board, in large part, has done a pretty good job at that. But hopefully, being able to help build that vision and having somebody like myself who's eager to help build that vision and do the legwork to make that happen, I think that's going to be the critical change in the next 4 years.
The school board, in terms of taxing revenue, right, has had an explosion just because of the number of new people that are here, the rapid increase in property values. What do you do with all that money? Do you give it back? Do you spend on something? What's the plan for that?
Yeah, so what I'd like to see happen is it go back to where it needs to go, which is the classrooms. We have a lot of expenses that never make it to the classroom. We have a lot of dollars that never make it to the classroom. In a world where teachers are having to put pencils and Kleenexes on their school supplies list, meanwhile we're building, $55 million buildings. We have a lot of revenue, and I'm thankful for that. But I think being able to get a bit more granular with how that money is allocated, I think is going to be a huge help to our teachers. We have a good teacher retention in Walton County, and I think we can make that even better with doing small things like that. It's the details that are going to win the race. It's not so much macro changes as it's going to be some minor budget changes that I think will dramatically change what we're looking at.
Awesome. Is there anything else that we should have discussed, or anything that you want to make very obvious to the listeners or the viewers at home that might be tuning in to hear you?
Yeah, so first off, I want to thank my family, my wife, and my kids. They have really stuck it out over the last year of campaigning. It's been a lot of, long nights, sleepless nights, and they've never wavered. They've never complained. And so I really appreciate them being so diligent with me, and of course my family, my friends, my volunteers. They've been instrumental. This was not a one-man job. We had a lot of people that were involved and made it happen. I think our messaging was very clear. We did not waver on what we stand for as a campaign, and I think what we stood for. You can go through my social media, you can go through interviews, even the interview that I did with you, Chris. Several months back. I didn't change those policy decisions or those ideas, even when I honestly had some advice to do so, and I think it paid off. had a really good turnout last night. And, as you said, we lost the last election. I think it was around 350 votes. We got a win by about 130. So, we were able to convince, you could say roughly 500 people that what we have going on here is actually what needs to happen. So I would just like to extend my gratitude to the county and to those who made it possible, but also to just assure the people of Walton County that I will do my dead level best not to let you down.
All right, Gordon Porter, yeah, you don't have it's already done. Yes, I'm so used to people saying primaries and then there's write-ins that I forget about. But Gordon
Yeah.
Porter is your District 3 school board representative elect. So be on the lookout for him, his policies, procedures, all the stuff that's going to be coming to the school board. And we, just on a personal note at Midbay News, are very excited about getting live streaming capabilities over there so we can watch some more of this stuff and cover more stuff. So we really appreciate it, man.
Great. Yeah, no, appreciate the interview. And thanks again, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Sir. Great way to ensure that we have a great football season and everybody knows what's going on. You can also go to midbaynews.com/sports. That's where you're going to be able to find all of our football coverage. So, with that being said, we have a show to go to at 4 o'clock. That's right, our show for sports, our kickoff show starts at 4 p.m., so we hope to see you there. But until then, thanks for joining us.